Yeah, man.
This is Dev TV.
All right.
Been doing that.
It's your boy Trelly.
And Dev TV.
Hi everyone, it's Raven Paris.
Yo, it's your boy Philadelphia Freeway.
Yeah, man. I see everything.
Yeah, man, I see everything.
And you're now tuned into Dev TV.
Yeah, I see everything.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. See everything.
Nigga, why you hating? Nigga, why you hating? I'm a star in the making.
Hi, my name is Irko, and this is how your song is before I mix it. Hi, my name is Irko, and this is how your song is after my mix.
Hey, what's up? It's your boy Devin Fly Guy Rick. You're not locked into Dev TV. Yeah, man, I see everything. We're here in College Park, Maryland, and I'm here chilling with an astonishing, phenomenal, multi-platinum award-winning audio engineer. Over the last 15 years, he has mixed and recorded 1,000+ songs worldwide. He was born and raised in Italy, and as his bio says, I have grown to enjoy books, fine food, good company, and aesthetics. I know you're dying to know who I'm talking about at this point, and this cool guy goes by the name of Irko. How you doing, man?
Meet you in real life, finally. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and welcome to Dev TV.
Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah. So just to start off the interview, over the last 15 years, just talk about the journey in the nutshell, from like the beginning to your first big break to staying relevant in the industry and so forth.
Well, it was interesting in the beginning because coming from a very different part of the world where there is no real music industry that was coming from America, it was really interesting for me to kind of recreate what I was seeing in video clips and stuff, because it's not like today where there's internet and you got thousands of songs available to you on the phone at a reach of a fingertip. We're talking about before the internet, we're talking about before all of that stuff. So in order for me to get CDs, I would have to order them from America. And and I was a kid, so that meant that I had no money. And so it was interesting, to get into the passion that I had for music. And it's funny because through the travels that my family brought me with, I was exposed to a lot of American music all over the world, really. And somehow hip-hop clicked with me. I think the reason is because of my audio ear. And what I mean by that is hip-hop back then was boom bap stuff. It was like the big drums, big snares, big kicks, and I loved that stuff. And so then I got dragged into the whole music and everything because of that, and it kind of like just stemmed to be whatever it is today. 20 years later, I'm still doing the boom bap if I can. So yeah, it's been interesting. It's definitely interesting having a very different background and eventually being in America to do my thing. It's really interesting.
And going into your names, I looked at your website. I looked at everybody that was credited. Going from Jay-Z to Rick Ross to Kanye West, had a large resume, and then from Baltimore's own Lil Mo and Snoop from The Wire. So, as all the projects, even the underground, the local artists, and the mainstream, what has been your most memorable project and/or your favorite project to date?
Well, that's a very difficult question, man.
Top 5?
Top 5. I mean, so okay. The most impressive, of course, were the ones that eventually got me a lot of visibility. So, of course, with the big names usually comes a lot of sales, a lot of exposure, stuff charting like we were just talking about. And so that, of course, is important. So I would say in terms of the exposure, that the big names that I worked with, of course, gained a lot of visibility to what I do because of the millions of sales or plays or streams nowadays. So that will be one chunk of the things that I'm proud of. The second one will be, I guess, actually getting calls from people that may not be famous or established artists, but they always open the conversation like, I heard so much of your music before, and I want you to mix my next record. You know, so those of course are very. I'm very grateful for people reaching out to me to do their records. You know. And then I would say the other ones that are the third category will be the audio nerd category. So anything that had, for whatever reason, an interesting either recording session or mixing session, depending on the various things. So for example, when I first worked at Bad Boy, I was finally able to get my hands on very nice gear because, of course, Puff has no problem with getting whatever he needed, right? And so I was finally able to work on consoles that, where all the famous Biggie stuff was mixed. And I was right there touching the same exact faders and knobs. That was amazing. Same thing, I actually did a record in Baltimore a few years back with a band, and we decided to do the whole thing on tape. So no computers. So, in this day and age, doing a whole record without computers, it's kind of strange. And of course, it comes with all the limitations and the bad, quote unquote, things of the technology that was offered in the 70s, but also I had all the good stuff of the sound and that warmth of old records. So that's another one that I have very good memories of. And so yeah, there's a lot of different things, man. It's very diverse.
As far as being an audio engineer, now what do you do, or what do you feel that you do that's differently than other audio engineers? Like, what is your special sauce that you put on your projects to keep people coming back for more?
Well, I'm very big on the whole communication thing, and just like in anything else in life, communication is key. And when you're communicating with artsy kind of people, producers, artists, whatever, it's even more difficult because you gotta get them on the phone. They may not be very precise with the handling files and stuff like that. So that's a very important thing. Oftentimes, especially people from the labels appreciate and actually communicate with me the fact that how I handle the entire process, regardless of the audio, actually, is very important. So that's the first thing. Then, of course, the second thing is that you got this, white guy from Italy with a funny accent showing up with a wooden bow tie at a rapper session. What? Like, what is that? So I kind of made that into my own little signature, or kind of sales pitch. I guess it's not even real sales pitch, but kind of part of the whole package. So that I definitely do that differently. And then, of course, I'm super, super dedicated to this. I mean, clearly I moved to the other side of the planet to do this. So there's no doubt that, I really dedicated my entire life, 20 years of my life, basically, to being an audio engineer. So people feel that they know how passionate I am. And then, even if I'm doing not urban records, I still push those, that boom bap sound that I grew up listening to, basically, So yeah.
So now, as far as your career path, like what's actually, I know you talked about the journey, how you moved, but what sparked, like when you were in Italy, like what clicked to be like, I want to do this, I'm going to move across the country? Like what was that first? Did you have your own little system, like in the room, or like how did the story start for you starting that actual path?
Well, so even before that, the very beginning point of the whole thing really happened in my dad's garage. Like that was a very humbling kind of like, literally underground kind of situation. And that's where it started. But then years later, I want to say maybe 6 years after, started in my dad's garage, I was able to move my entire studio to a very, very big location. So I literally went from the downstairs, musty little dark room to a very large warehouse. Actually, the biggest one, it was the biggest recording studio in the northeast of Italy. So that was like a very big deal. And I was still very young. And it took me a while to build the studio because, of course, it takes a lot of money, a lot of time, and I did it. And when I was done with it, I was like, okay, so now what? And I kind of went to New York. Now, of course, I'm making it very quick, but that's kind of what happened. I went to New York City, and in New York City, things started to just happen. And one of them was that I got to engineer a record that ended up being track 1 on a Jay-Z record. And, of course, that was like...
That was the first gig, like Jay-Z record.
Yeah, the first big thing in New York City, and it was shortly after I got to the city, So that was really big, So that's like how it kind of happened. Like I don't know if I can say that I always wanted to be in America, because maybe I did, but it wasn't really like I need to go there, like Zohan, like it wasn't really like that. But then I realized that, basically where I was, I had a virtual roof above my head that I couldn't really break because the opportunities given to me in my country were just not as big, not as, you know, they were just not there as much as they are here. You know, the land of opportunity, it's called that for a reason, you know? So yeah, that's how it kind of happened. Like, I guess, I don't know if this answers the question, but okay.
Now I wanted to ask you, now I was looking at your Instagram and I saw one of your like old school pictures, like I guess like the Eminem like rap album. So like, was rapping ever part of the plan? Like what were you doing before you took on this career path full time? Like were you rapping at one point, or how was that sparking your wardrobe?
Yeah, I love those posts, first of all, because, you know, even though I'm totally ashamed of them, it's still kind of funny to see the progress and, you know, the evolution of someone, right? Especially because it's me. So.
It's like
yeah, right? Yeah, it's funny. No, I've never been an artist. I never rapped or anything else. I totally look like one, I know. But I actually kind of maybe look like I was one of the, you know, the Backstreet Boys, you know, but that's a different story. So yeah, no, never. To me, I've always been a music behind the scenes kind of guy. Yes, I DJ'd, so I was, you know, running parties or whatever. But I was always kind of like the music guy, you know. So if it was DJing, of course I was DJing. If it was a studio production thing, I was the producer in the beginnings, and then kind of became the engineering. But it always have. Like I never felt like I was like a in front of the crowd kind of person. I can't sing, it's not really my thing. So, you know, I love my position. I always say that I actually feel that the mixing engineer position or career path almost seems like it was created for me. Like not the other way around, you know, because it's perfectly fit into my personality. You know, I like the geeky technology kind of stuff, but I'm also very creative and artsy with my stuff. So mixing is actually right there in midway in between the technical stuff and the artistic stuff, you know. And so that kind of like, yeah, that's how it kind of happened, I guess. So yeah, no, I've never been on stage, no.
Okay.
DJing, yes, but that's it.
Okay. So it's in the stage just sparked your wardrobe. And just let me just try this out, and then okay. Yeah. That's good. All right, now as far as, you know, audio engineering, like what do you love doing the most? Like do you love mixing for like rap music, jazz music? Like what is your niche as far as like genre of music you like mixing for? For the first, I want to say maybe 10 years of my career, I was taking on all kinds of crap, stuff that I didn't like, you know, I had to pay rent, you know, I had to pay my stuff, you know, it didn't matter. Now, finally, I'm at a stage in my career where I can be a lot more selective. So really, to me, the barrier, I guess, the filter to get on for gigs that I actually take on is really just, do I like this or no? That's really all it is. So it doesn't really matter the genre now, of course, you know, given that I mix so many urban artists, I get a lot of calls for that kind of stuff. But that's not all I do. I do a lot of pop music, I do a lot of alternative stuff. So it really ranges, you know? So as long as I like it, I'll do it. Okay, so we're going to take a quick commercial break. You guys are watching Dev TV, chilling with Irko, getting to know him a little bit better. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Don't go nowhere.
I ain't apologizing for shit.
What you want from me? I would say I'm sorry if I really meant it. I ain't sorry. No, hell no.
That's where No More Apologies came from. It just came from me taking care of you.
I ain't apologizing for shit.
So fuck apologies. I would say I'm sorry if I really meant it.
Hi, my name is Irko. You're now watching Dev TV. And yeah, man, I see everything.
Hey, what's up? It's your boy Devin Fly Guy Riggs. We're back on Dev TV, chilling with Mr. Irko. You still doing good, man? Kicking it with us? That's good, man. So jump back into the interview. So talk a little bit about the education part. Did you go to school for this, or was everything pretty much self-taught?
Yep. College dropout. I was doing computer science. Okay. I dropped out and I went to audio engineering school. And it's funny because all the way till that point, I was basically just kind of barely getting by in school. It wasn't my thing going to school, right? Until I went to audio engineering school though, and that really was my thing. I remember, you know, bringing home grades that my family was like, what? When did this happen? And funny enough, I didn't really study that much at home, but I was just soaking it in. In fact, I remember at audio engineering school, we didn't have a recording studio. So we had to actually physically go to a recording studio. And the first time that I actually got into it. There were, I think, 2 rows of chairs, right, for all the students. And I was dead in the middle of the first row. And I remember just sitting down and looking at this place like, oh my God, I'm in this spaceship. And I remember the class started at 8 a.m. and I think it let out maybe like at 3 p.m. or something. I did not move from that chair the whole time. No breaks, no bathroom breaks, no lunch breaks, nothing. And the whole time I realized later that I didn't even talk to the people that were sitting next to me. I was just like there like this, like hypnotized. And I was like, yeah, this is it. This is really where I want to spend my time, like in a spaceship, listening to music loud. What? Yes, absolutely. So yes, no, I went to audio engineering school. I'm a big believer that audio engineering school is really important. Granted, no kid that graduates from any audio engineering school actually walks out knowing how to really produce and record and mix records professionally, you know, but it gives you a very, very needed base onto which you can build a very good career. So usually after the school period, whatever school, however long it is, students usually actually go to intern to, you know, real studios to kind of get a feel of how everything is handled. So I don't think that school is the end all of education of someone in the entertainment or any other field really. But it's definitely the beginning stage that's very important. So in fact, all the interns and the assistants that I get, I always get them either through the schools, or I want to check and make sure they do have a you know, an educational background enough to know what I'm talking about when I say, hey, make sure you adjust that threshold, or what is that, you know what I mean? Like, it's important.
Okay, good. Now, as far as your career up to this point, what would you say is the most, or has been the most challenging experience in your career so far? Because I know there's a lot of bumps in the road. So what was the most challenging experience up to this date?
Well, a lot of them, man. The first one that comes to mind immediately is that, you know, my career has been almost 20 years now. So in the 20 years, technology has changed so much that, you know, my initial 10 years, the technology that I was using to mix, namely the mixing, the consoles and the outboard gear, that all that stuff was completely analog. And now it's all digital. So at one point I had to kind of do this like very painful transition to go from something that I was very comfortable and knew very, very well into a new technology that it was new to me. So I had to discover how things could eventually translate into this digital world now. So that was the first thing. The second thing, I guess, is there's a very big step between starting to doing records and now working with chart toppers artists. You know, now there's so much more stress. The turnarounds need to be a lot quicker. There's a lot more stress in terms of how many people are involved. For example, a typical scenario of a session is I'm mixing, then I have a producer or maybe more, a artist or maybe more, and then I have the manager or managers, and then I have the label guy, the A&R, sometimes I have a money guy like the investor, and then the girlfriends. So there's, you know, there's a lot, yeah, you know, so there's a lot of people that are involved. So sometimes I may get, you know, one message from the guitar player saying more guitars, of course, and then I get a message from the drummer saying more drums. So it's challenging to really make sure that everybody's happy at the end of the day, you know. So there's a lot of babysitting, quote unquote, that goes along with everything.
You sound like a director. Pretty much like you're a director, yeah.
Right? It's a lot of people that are involved, so it's difficult. And then of course all the technicalities of everything. So, you know, making sure that technically my mix is actually is able to translate in a very big system of a car where somebody has, you know, 312s in the trunk, all the way to, you know, the little earbuds that the kid is playing on the train. You know, so those are completely different playback systems. So I gotta make sure that those are all okay. And then now with the streaming, that's a whole different beast too. So now we got Tidal that has a different streaming loudness format compared to YouTube, and that's a different one from Spotify, and the iTunes downloadable MP3s. You know, so it's all different. You know, so there's a lot of things that need to be you know, paid attention to while mixing. So there's a lot of things that are, you know, that need to be followed up. Also, another thing, last thing I'll tell you, because I can go on. The last thing is in my line of work, you know, there's a lot of creativity, but then there's also a lot of computerism, and then of course all the music stuff, but then also the selling part and the accounting part. Those are are all completely unrelated to one another. So, the minute I need to send out an invoice, I'm wearing a completely different hat as the one that I'm wearing when I'm thinking about, oh, what kind of effect does this guy like on his vocal? They're completely different. And you got to be really aware of all these different things that you got to go through, including, money, being dry sometimes being really fat, and, so it's a lot of stuff.
So, as far as the technical part, so you have your, softwares and formats you like to use. For all my, audio engineers out there, like what format do you prefer to work with, and what software do you use?
So I use Pro Tools. That's been my extension of my music brain for 20 years. So I think Pro Tools, I see Pro Tools when I'm thinking about music. So that's really the basic for me, the basic standard format. That being said, a lot of my clients are on Pro Tools, but most of the producers are actually working on different DAWs like Logic, like other computers that allow the production part of the process to be more streamlined. Pro Tools was originally intended to be just an emulation of a tape machine, right? So it's a little bit different. So that's what I use, and in terms of the quality, I always go substantially higher quality than the actual final MP3s that are being streamed on Spotify or on the radio. And the reason why I do that is so that basically while working, I have the highest conversion rate, effects rates, and everything are basically super HD. And then when I'm finally done with the whole mix, it gets scaled down as a whole, though, instead of having every single piece being scaled down from the beginning. So that's kind of like the direction. And then when I do my, my car tests, like basically when I mix, I always put the mix through a stressful situation to see what are the flaws so that I can fix them. And one of them is, of course, I listen to the mix in the car. I want to make sure that it sounds right, that trunk needs to be right. I try with the windows down, with the windows up, all of that stuff. So, why was I saying that? Oh yes, that in those tests I use regular MP3s. So I actually put my mix in the position of a regular, actual real life usage kind of scenario, and then I can have a kind of like a point of perspective of how it's actually going to be heard by the regular clients. So there's a bunch of different levels at which I do all these tests and stuff. But yeah, in terms of the technology, Pro Tools and higher quality as much as I can.
Perfect. There was one thing that made me laugh when you was talking about the windows down. There was one thing you was doing binaural sound, and then the guy, it had like a head on it, and you said, "This is my buddy Mike." Get it?
A binaural recording is the most immersive way to experience surround sound. Meet my friend Mike. Get it?
And then it took me a second. I was like, the mic. So I was like, there we go, M-I-K-E, M-I-C. So, but altogether, in your opinion, like, what do you feel makes a great audio engineer? Like, what do you feel like are key elements that every audio engineer should stick by to make themselves, a good client, a good person to work with?
So there's a lot of things here too, but I would say one of the first things will be to actually create your own personality or touch or sound, your signature basically, for which you're known for. But then once that's a thing, you have all the tools at your disposal and your tricks and your set of things that you usually do. Also be very ready, and I mean like very ready, to put those to the side, because when you check into the studio, the ego is checked outside, because you never know what the request may be from the client. And truth be told, I always do what my client asks in terms of different approaches on the mix, or maybe do something that's technically wrong. I still do it, I'll still try it, and then if it works, fantastic, and if it doesn't, oh well, I'm like, oh well, I knew that, that's what I think. But 9 times out of 10, even if they are asking me something weird or wrong or strange or something I would have never thought of, actually turns out to be a very good thing that works for the song. And ultimately it makes sense, because they are the parents of the song. I'm momentarily putting makeup on their baby. But it's their baby, so of course, that's what I'm saying. Like, you need to have a big palette of tools that are always ready to be applied, but you can never be like, put your foot down and be like, okay, this is it, this is the way I do it, either take it or go. Because if you do, then half the people are going to be like, well, peace out, Irko, bye bye. So that's one of the traits. The other one is you need to be very, very big on attention to detail. That mixing is all about that, so that's very important. And then have huge patience. Like, you got to be really patient with people. Oftentimes I get the call, at 10, 11 p.m. about some crazy stuff, or can you send me this? Can you send me that? last minute stuff. You know, so there's a lot of BS that you got to really focus on. I mean, you got to deal with every day. So, you know, patience is number one, you know, very important, you know. And there's a lot of other things, you know, but for the most part, I would say the biggest ones are those.
Now, as far as, you know, the industry people you work with on the music tip, now, have you worked with any film, like as far as, you know, for movies and soundtracks, or is there anyone out there that you would love to work with in that realm of technology?
So audio for video, it's usually a little bit of a different beast because most of the times it's surround, 5.1, 6, you know, whatever, you know, there's a lot of more channels and stuff. So I'm a lot more confident in my only 2 channels where I'm only left and right. However, that being said, a lot of my stuff that I have mixed ended up being used in movies, but that doesn't really change what I do in terms of the actual approach of the song. And in the movie, it's just being featured as a song that came from somewhere, and that somewhere happened to be me. So I never mixed a movie or anything. I guess the only experience that I really have on mixing stuff for video is for my documentaries. But again, it's like, you know, the audio coming from my GoPro, and that's really it, you know, so it's super basic. So, no, it's a little bit of a different beast for me, and I'm a lot more focused on the music thing and mixing specifically for music. And, you know, kind of feels like it feels a little more right, I guess, you know, to be focused on one thing.
But are you opposed to it?
I'm not opposed to it. I just feel like it's a little bit of a different category of engineering. And I feel like also, because I'm 20 years in the music, I feel like if I wanted to do that transition, I should have done it a long time ago. I feel like I'm, you know, oh well, now I'm here. Might as well just make the most out of it, you know?
I got you. Now, as far as your workshops, what do you do, like, as far as the setup? Like, what do you make sure that you focus on? Because you probably got, like, an hour or two. So it's a lot of material. I know we're talking, there's a lot of, like, details and levels to it. So what do you do during your workshop that you make sure you stick to, like, what key elements throughout your workshops?
My workshops are called Speakeasy Workshop. They have nothing to do with no alcohol, but they're called that because I literally want the attendants to speak easy so that we can make it into a conversation, you know? So I like to keep it organic and see who's in front of me and who's got the questions and what kind of direction they want to go, right? That being said, there's different kinds of workshops that I do. So on one hand, we have the hands-on, let's record some vocals, let's mix something together on the console, and usually that's geared to a smaller class, you know, maybe 10 people max, and it's like a very private and very hands-on kind of thing, right? On the other end of the spectrum, we have the almost motivational speaking kind of thing, where it's like I'm sharing basically the crazy path that my career took me through, from, you know, Italy all the way to New York and now LA. So that's more of, you know, that could be, I've done that in high schools where people weren't really into audio engineering at all, you know? And then we have the just like the meet and greet or the Q&A sessions, kind of like the one that we're doing tonight, where it's more of an organic kind of thing, and people are kind of, you know, just having a conversation. So they really differ from one another, but the one thing that I want to have always people go, you know, kind of leave out with is the concept that if you really want it and if you really put a lot of work in it, you'll be able to achieve what you want to do, you know? And, you know, this is being said by a guy that came from the other side of the planet, you know, so, you know, yeah.
They say it's a meant to be thing. Yeah, maybe. I hope so.
Right. So hold that thought. We're going to take one more commercial break. You're locked into Dev TV, channel Mr. Irko. Yeah, man. We'll be right back.
Jaded your earth, mistaken for your statement. Now you're aching my heart. A star of memory, name it heavenly. I'm hooked on your melody.
We got 4 microphones down for him, right? The C800, the TLM49, the RCA77, and the SM7. I recorded them all at the same time, and now I'm gonna listen to all of them and see which one I like best.
To watch this video and more, go to the Irko YouTube channel.
Hi, my name is Irko, and this is how your song is before I mix it. Hi, my name is Irko, and this is how your song is after my mix.
Hey, what's up? It's your boy Devin Fly Guy Ricks. We're at the 2017 BET Hip Hop Awards, and you're now watching Dev TV. Yeah, man, I see everything. Let's go see what's popping.
Yo, bro, what's up, bro? I'm walking, bro. Hey, bro. So the state is called Dev TV.
Yeah.
And he say, yeah, Dev TV.
Oh shit, I know Dev TV.
And they say, yeah. Yeah, and they say, yeah, man, I see everything. That's
I know this shit on God. What up, man? It's Waka Flocka, man. We watching Dev TV. Yeah, man, I see everything. Flocka.
What up, what up? It's Breezy and you're watching Dev TV. Yeah, man, I see everything.
I love the energy.
What up, the cast of 50 Central?
You're watching Dev TV.
Yeah, man, see everything.
No, let's do our names. Hey, honey, this is Lala.
This your boy Quay.
And, honey, we with Dev TV.
Yeah,
honey,
man.
hold on. These expensive.
These is red bottle. Keep it locked. We'll be right back. We do that thing. Yeah, yeah. See you, man.
Hey, what's up, guys? Your boy Devin Fly Guy Ricks. We're back on Dev TV, and yeah, man, everything's coming to a close. It's been a great, interview, sitting down talking with you, getting the new energy and just new realm of technology and industry and things like that. So it's been a pleasure, man.
Thanks for having me, Devin.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So to wrap this interview up, so where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? And is there anyone that you haven't worked with yet that you would love to work with in the future?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that I would like to work with, of course. And in terms of the 5 years plan, yeah, well, opening my new studio. That'll be a big one for 2018 in LA, yes. It's going to be an interesting process right there because, I'm building the whole thing from ground up. We're not talking about sitting in a little computer in a living room or something. We're talking about doing a real studio. So it's going to be a lot. So that's, in the next year and a half, is going to be dedicated to that big time. And following up with that, once I have the location ready, I'm going to try to make my speakeasy workshops actually happen in my own studio as, maybe a regular scheduled kind of thing. So that's going to be a big one for sure. And in terms of, so I think that's really the goal for the next year and a half. And then once the thing is done, to build the whole thing is going to take another few years. So maybe the 5-year slot is actually kind of accurate. Okay. And then other than that, I mean, music-wise, I would love to do more things. I would love to do more traveling. I would love to expand my client base in Asia and, maybe Australia, those parts that are far out that I haven't really traveled and influenced as much yet. And so, yeah, maybe intern for this guy, Devin. Maybe?
Never know, right? Yes, most definitely. I'd love to have you. Now, what is some, how you said some of your workshops, you do a lot of could be motivational, could be quotes. So what are some quotes that you go by or what are some of the quotes that you say during your workshops that kind of keep people going and things to stick by in this industry or anybody that wants to follow their dreams?
Well, so interestingly, maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago, I started reading biographies. So I read about these extraordinary people that achieved incredible tasks. The Steve Jobs, the Michael Jacksons, and they go I'm reading about Nikola Tesla now. This guy kind of basically created electricity. He didn't create it, but he made it available to us. So there's a lot of things that I'm taking away from all these people that from all different walks of life, Benjamin Franklin, all these people. Anyway, so the cool thing about it is I kind of take away a little piece of their thinking or their process. For example, one thing that I learned that's really important is, for example, to revisit an idea. So instead of saying, okay, I have this idea about, I don't know, this kind of shoe, for example, right? One way would be to just kind of do it and then kind of perfect it as it happens. Instead, and this I learned from Albert Einstein, I try to keep the idea in my head and perfect it as much as I can in my head until I make it. And the minute I actually materialize whatever it is, so say we're talking about the shoe has been designed basically for weeks in my head, So that kind of gives you a way of being a lot more focused on whatever your task is and revisit it many times. So I don't have a specific quote per se. Maybe all children are artists. I like that one, I guess. but yeah, I like to take away from a lot of very successful people in very different walks of life, from designers to technologists, Steve Jobs, Benjamin Franklin, all these people that I've been reading about. Ripley, believe it or not, that guy's life is incredible, and a bunch of them. So yeah, I guess that's what I bring. I bring that. That's why I say that I like books. I like to read.
Now, I remember when I was reading your bio, and you say you love aesthetics. Now, that's the good and the bad, the ugly, the beauty, things like that. So, what, specific like details that you like to focus on with aesthetics? Like, is it like the heart? Is it like certain artworks, or is it like life? Or like, what aesthetics do you like to like focus on?
Everywhere. In fact, one of the books that I'm getting ready to read is the works of Giorgetto Giugiaro. This is an Italian designer. He's a very big guy. He designed a bunch of cars that we are very aware of, like the DeLorean, all the way down to Lamborghinis, and all the way down to pasta. Like, this guy designed pasta shapes, refrigerators, motorcycles, all kinds of stuff, houses. So I love aesthetic in all ways. Like, being in this beautiful hotel, I walk around and I'm like, oh man, this looks amazing. And that kind of applies to music, proportions and stuff like that, the Fibonacci sequence and all these, the golden rule and all that stuff. And I try to apply that to music as well, balance, the evenness between left and right, the different use of the different elements and the different spatializing, the spacing into the mix where I can place things in different spots, right? So all of those things I try to include in my art, basically. Yeah. So everything aesthetics, cars, women, of course, everything. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So now, is there anything that you want to leave us off with? Anything that I didn't touch on? Anything that you might want to say that we haven't spoke throughout the whole interview?
Well, one thing that actually came to mind about the future, the next 5 years, is, for example, that I want to do a lot more live events, streaming on Instagram and stuff like that. That's just like on a side note. No, I guess, follow me on the social media. It's Irko Studio Beat everywhere. But if you look up Irko, it's going to pop up. IRKO. Nobody's named that, so that's easy.
Good. So yeah, man, we come to a close. It's been a great time talking with you, Irko. I'm glad we met. You're very welcome. I just want to say shout out to Zai. He hooked us up on Instagram. This is social media at its finest, networking. So he shouted us out to each other on Facebook, and we make this thing happen. So thank you for being the spark of this interview. Yeah, man, you're watching Dev TV. I'm your boy Devin Fly Guy Ricks. Irko's about to head over to the Milk Boy house for one of his workshops. So I'm excited to see how everything's going to turn out. So keep it locked. I see everything. Yeah, man, I see everything. We have way more things to come. Thank you for watching.
Yeah, man.
Nigga, why you
see everything.
Nigga, why you